So if you think about trauma generally and the situation in the world generally, we're all trying to get back to ourselves from being taken away from ourselves. So if you think about it, if you were taken away from yourself as a child in lots of different ways by your parents, then if you don't resolve that stuff and then you move into adulthood, you're trying to make major decisions from a place of not being yourself. So if you're deciding something from a place of not being yourself, your decisions are sometimes going to create results that are skewed and kind of off. And we can only really know what the right actions are when we're in our truth.
You can self-heal anything yourself, emotional, mental, and physical. All symptoms, including physical ones, are temporary. They are your body's voice shouting about unprocessed emotions. If you are done with making your symptoms permanent, then come to my website link underneath to find out how I can help you to release and rise. I'm Jenny Luscombe, a facilitator of healing and awakening. I point people towards the truth that we do actually have the power to own our own consciousness after all. I'm just about to do my show, Feeling is Healing, on Holistic Radio on Telegram. This happens every Monday, 5 till 6 p.m, where you can listen live and come and join in and ask questions or listen to the replay. I absolutely love my Holistic Radio family. I love doing my show. It's my passion. It's a beautiful example of win-win energy, therapeutic for me, therapeutic for you. Come and discover, explore, live, laugh, learn, listen, enjoy, and gratitude.
Hello everybody, this is Jenny Luscombe and this is Feeling is Healing. Today we're going to be talking about body conversations. Going back about 12, 13 years, I would never have heard of such a thing. And I kind of stumbled across all of this completely by accident when I was struggling with emotional stuff. And I ended up going and having talking therapy, and that kind of led me on this winding road to tapping. So I got into EFT tapping to process the emotion that I realized was surfacing from my subconscious. And at the time, even though I had a background in psychology, I didn't really understand the mind-body connection, but I did have quite a lot of intuitive hits that it was weird that people took pills for emotions, and I knew that there was a lot of things off actually. And working in mental health services as well for a few years and talking to a psychiatrist about how he prescribed, I realized there was something very off about it all. So I kind of, as I was tapping, I think it was probably about a year and a half that I was tapping, I was just exploring my own consciousness. I was finding that it worked really well, and I was having profound shifts of consciousness just from dealing with emotion after a lifetime of, I think, probably pretending it wasn't happening or burying stuff in kind of quite a conscious way. So what I'm getting at is, I as I was tapping and processing emotional pain, I was releasing physical pain, but I didn't make the connection straight away. Because I found it so helpful, I ended up training to be a practitioner. And I remember asking the trainer, is it possible that tapping for a while has helped my physical pain? Thinking it was a silly question. And then I realized it's kind of common knowledge in this industry, in the alternative health industry, that anything that is manifesting physically in the body is likely to have an emotional root that hasn't been processed. So there's something in your system that is left unreconciled or unrecognized, or something that needs to be resolved. something unresolved is there. So I now know 100% that physical symptoms of every description have got a message for us, and it's kind of like almost like a form of divination in a way. It's a reflection. So I would highly recommend, if you can, starting to investigate your body in terms of what it is saying to you through your symptoms. So if your body had a voice, it would be speaking to you through your symptoms. So that can be emotional symptoms, mental symptoms, and physical symptoms, or all three. You can also take it a step further and you can investigate that through muscle testing. But I'm aware that most people don't muscle test and don't really understand what that is. But it's actually a profound kind of spiritual journey, learning to muscle test. If you can learn to muscle test, then you can ask your body consciousness or the universe at large or the quantum field or your spirit guides, wherever you want to focus, whatever way you look at things, you can ask the greater part of yourself questions and you can get answers. So the reason that is good is, if you think about consciousness like a pie chart, it's kind of estimated that 5 to 10% of that consciousness is the conscious mind, which is what we think we're operating from mainly. But then there's 90 to 95% of our consciousness that is kind of responding at all times to the subconscious mind. So the subconscious mind is full of all sorts of useful stuff, like, for example, how to drive, how to walk, like how to do the things that it took us a while to learn in our life. It took us a while to learn to walk. It took us a while to learn to drive. So as soon as those things become automatic, it's because your subconscious mind has taken them on, and you don't have to kind of use effort in order to have that process carried out in your reality. So there's lots of good stuff in the subconscious, but there's also lots of stuff that we would call negative as well. So I think this idea of good things being in there is kind of neglected on the spiritual path, because we all get so obsessed with healing. So if you think about when you were a kid, that there were lots of things happened to us when we were shut down by our parents, and they didn't mean to do that. They just did that because their parents did it, and they wanted us to be like them, as opposed to seeing us as a separate, unique individual. So there are aspects of us that we shut down that we have stored in our subconscious. So that can be things like anger, or I shouldn't be angry, that's socially unacceptable, or it's rude. So we might have an angry part of us suppressed kind of over and over again, but we also might have something beautiful about us, like some art or talent or some unique flair that we have, like an ability that somebody might have shut down in us because they were jealous, or because it made them uncomfortable, because it triggered them, in terms of something that they had within them. So sometimes the positive aspects of ourselves need to be surfaced as well. So things like excitement can be something that people suppress. People sometimes might not let themselves get excited in case they get disappointed. So that would suggest that there is an aspect of self that is disappointed, that needs to be kind of sat with and loved. So what I want to do today is focus on physical stuff, because it seems to me more and more, the more people I talk to, and even in the spiritual community, the awakening community, it's not common knowledge that the physical stuff is emotional and that it's all kind of the same thing. And I've noticed this because I've started running a group in Liverpool, which has attracted all sorts of different people. So there are lots of people on the spiritual path, but there's also a lot of people who are truthers, who are the keyboard warriors. They're kind of looking to expose truth, and they're doing their part in a different way to a lot of us. But I've noticed that those people who are awakening to what the governments are getting up to and the injustices out there kind of in the world, those people aren't always awake spiritually. And I think that there's a lot of resistance to God. I don't think that spirituality is necessarily about God, but I think that's a misunderstanding as well. So yeah, this has kind of poked me in this direction to help people look at physical stuff, because there's people like Louise Hay, who it was her life's work to work in an alternative way with her clients. She was a tapper, actually. She was EFT tapping, but she did lots of alternative approaches. But her life's work was basically noticing patterns that people had in common. So, for example, people who suffered from the same disease, she noticed would have a very similar kind of thought pattern. And she tested this out, and it just seemed extremely true. And years and years and years on, and she's no longer with us, most alternative therapists will use her list to refer to when a client is presenting with physical stuff as well as emotional and mental stuff. So there's a couple that I want to just mention straight away that come up over and over again, and it's mind-boggling to me. There's a valve in our body called, I don't know if I'm saying this right, the ileocecal valve, and it's spelled ILEOCECAL, ileocecal. So the ileocecal valve is part of the digestive system, and it acts a bit like a sphincter muscle, and the purpose of it is to prevent toxicity from the fecal matter getting into the rest of the body, so getting into the bloodstream. Now this, so many people have come to me and they've had surgeries for conditions that are kind of along the lines of appendicitis. That's kind of what the diagnosis was, and then they've had their appendix out, or they've had some kind of surgery to correct the symptoms that they were having, which was, pain, abdominal pain that didn't have any kind of understandable cause from the perspective of their medical teams. So the ileocecal valve is often a place where humans will trap emotion. So I don't really know why that is, but apparently it's one of the places in the body where we really trap a lot of emotion. And we wouldn't know that it was there unless we were having some sort of symptoms. So often with the ileocecal valve, that imbalance, because there's emotion attached there that hasn't been processed, that can sometimes lead to abdominal pain and then unnecessary surgery. But it can also lead to things like sinus problems, which kind of like, this is the beautiful holistic way of the body. You wouldn't think that the sinuses had any connection to the digestive system at all, but sometimes with the body code, when I help people release the emotion that they have in their body, sometimes the sinus issue that they hadn't even mentioned, that was just kind of going on in the background, that they haven't thought to mention because they were working on something else, suddenly clears in a really obvious way, in a way that, sometimes people have had that sinus feeling in the nose up there, like for 20 years, and then suddenly it's not there. So people really notice it when it's been a long-term issue. So if the ileocecal valve imbalance remains, then the body will try to release the toxicity through the sinuses. So the body's trying to reconcile a problem in the digestive system with the sinuses. It's just going to use any outlet that it can to release this toxicity, to release the imbalance. So that if you have any kind of allergies that you have been told are a thing, so if you've got a diagnosis from a doctor saying, oh, I think you're allergic to this, or you've got an allergic to tree pollen or hay fever or cats or whatever it is, I would investigate your ileocecal valve, because I think even Louise Hay mentions the idea of false allergies. And it seems to me, like I remember when I was a kid at school, like nobody had allergies, and we were always out on the field with all the grass, and there were sheep next to where I went to school. None of us were allergic to anything. And then sort of when I was working as a teacher in Liverpool, about 13, 14 years ago, literally all the kids had an allergy. And obviously there's lots of toxicity in the environment now that might not have been there then. But yeah, allergies, I think people are often misdiagnosed with allergies, and sometimes they will just disappear strangely, for no apparent reason. No one knows why they suddenly disappear. No one knows why they suddenly appear. Like I apparently had hay fever for a year. My doctor said it was hay fever, and then it was gone. So it's kind of obvious to me that I had some sort of emotional imbalance, and then because I'm a person that does healing work, I just healed it because I was working on emotion anyway, and I was unconscious about the fact that it was causing the allergy. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff around allergies. I think people are getting misdiagnosed, and I think people are also getting misdiagnosed with appendicitis type conditions, and that if you kind of look at that area of the body, it's definitely something to look into, because surgery is so drastic, and quite frankly there are so many people that have come to me because they've had a surgery gone wrong as well, and I'm not against surgery. Obviously surgery is a thing that the NHS sometimes do really well and like is really successful, but yes, there's always an alternative. So I wanted to mention the ileocecal valve, because that's a thing that comes up time and time again. Another thing that comes up time and time again is knees. So if you've got something going on with your knees, I would say about 85% of the time, if it's your left knee, it's an emotional imbalance connected to your adrenal glands. If it's your right knee, it's an emotional imbalance connected to your gallbladder. So if it's your right knee and it's your gallbladder, it's likely that the emotion that is causing that knee pain or that knee situation in your right knee, it's possible that that is connected with emotions like anger and guilt and that kind of bitterness, and also things like frustration and panic and taken for granted. Like there's a certain row of the emotion code chart that connects with the gallbladder, and that's row 4. And then the left knee with the adrenal glands, that is often, I think people do, because obviously it suggests adrenaline, people do tend to connect the adrenals with stress generally, and that is definitely the case. But also the adrenal glands are often connected with emotion that are quite low frequency on the scale, sort of down with shame and pride and humiliation, lack, unworthiness. Those kind of emotions can be at play with the left knee and the adrenals. Teeth, again, is another one that comes up over and over again. If you've got some kind of thing going on with teeth, it's highly likely to be as a result of decision, like something to do with decisions. So they basically represent decisions, and often this can be like a long-standing kind of indecisiveness and like an inability to break down ideas for analysis. So all of the ADHDs amongst us, that there's lots of us who are on the awakening path who we don't fit into the system, and we were never meant to, and that's kind of the point. Some of us feel kind of quite scattered because we're built for crisis, really. We're built for this situation that we're in now in the world. We're the ones that can cope with a lot of stress. We might not feel like we're the ones that can cope, and yeah, we get kind of sick of coping, quite honestly. But yeah, teeth. If you've got teeth issues, it's about decisions. So if you think about trauma generally and the situation in the world generally, we're all trying to get back to ourselves from being taken away from ourselves. So if you think about it, if you were taken away from yourself as a child in lots of different ways by your parents, then if you don't resolve that stuff and then you move into adulthood, you're trying to make major decisions from a place of not being yourself. So if you're deciding something from a place of not being yourself, your decisions are sometimes going to create results that are skewed and kind of off. And we can only really know what the right actions are when we're in our truth. So Louise Hay would recommend the affirmation, I make my decisions based on the principles of truth, and I rest securely knowing that only right action is taking place in my life. Not easy to get to that point, and I think it's something that we're all struggling with to some degree. And then I've just got one more, which I found amazing. It was beautiful, like one of those lovely things that unfolds that shows you right in front of your face, like the evidence of something. So I've got this lovely client who I've known for quite a few years, and she comes every now and then, and she was having an EFT session with me, and we were working on a situation from her childhood where she had been abused. There was a situation. She tried to talk to her parents about that, and she was shut down and nobody would hear her. And the whole session was about her just not feeling recognized, just not being able to get herself to make an impact, feeling like she was invisible, that kind of lack of recognition, really strong. And so that's what we did in the session, and it was a really good session. We worked on a memory with inner child work, and she felt really good afterwards, really reconciled. And then we were just having a chat at the end, and she mentioned that she'd been having terrible nosebleeds. And I thought, oh, that's weird, because she hadn't thought to mention it because she didn't think there would be any kind of connection. But while she was talking, I looked it up in Louise Hay's book. I was thinking, I wonder what the message is from the body. I wonder why she's been having nosebleeds around about the same time as having this. And I almost fell off the chair because it was exactly what we'd been working on. The nose represents self-recognition. So nosebleeds specifically is a need for recognition, feeling unrecognized and unnoticed, crying for love. So she'd had that memory surfacing, and it was kind of haunting her, and it was keeping her awake, this memory of not being recognized and literally crying for love and feeling unnoticed, and with this terrible weight of something that she wanted to share, and she needed help, and the people that loved her couldn't face it, or that they were struggling themselves. So that was such beautiful evidence just right there with a client that the nose was trying to get a message to her. It was trying to, while she was going through that difficult memory surfacing, her nose was bleeding away. Look at me, look at me, look at me. And she didn't get the message that way, but she came for some therapy anyway. So she received the message in a different way. She received the message by going directly into her body, looking for a memory, and then the sensation in her body gave her this memory, and then we worked on that. And then she pulled the plug out of this surfacing need for recognition. So yeah, I thought that was an amazing one. And the nose generally, I've noticed when I'm doing any kind of energy work with people, EFT or the emotion and body code, sometimes people get a weird sensation in the nose, like a sort of fizziness. People sometimes describe it as a fizziness, or kind of like when you know that there's energy releasing, you can feel that moving through you, or it feels kind of tense or raw. That's often about recognition, like an identity level. There's something identity level going on with the nose, and with us all at the moment, kind of like, I don't like to say it's a spiritual war, but we're kind of like trying to master our frequencies. We're dipping down and going up again, and we're trying to figure out how to maintain a sense of well-being as us. We're trying to reclaim our sovereignty. We're trying to get ourselves back to who we are. And that's something I'm just seeing so much of at the moment, issues with the nose. So I just wanted to say all of those things as very common things that pop up over and over again. So is there anybody here who's listening on the live who would like to ask me a question about a symptom? So it might be a symptom of yours or a symptom of somebody that you know that you'd like to find out more information about what the body could be saying. Okay, so Teresa. Hi, Teresa.
Hi there.
Hi.
So for myself, on my fingers, the joints have, in a few places, have like these knobbly bone spurs, like bone growths. And not that my fingers are painful, but I suppose if I'm not moving them for a long time, there might be a bit of stiffness. But it's just the fact that one of them just seems to be, I'm like, what? It's like I can watch it grow. It just seems to be getting bigger. So yeah, I was wondered what that is saying to me.
Wow, yeah, that's an interesting one. So which finger is it that it seems to just be growing? So you're really noticing that finger. So there's a reason why you're noticing that finger.
Yeah, I mean, it's on my right hand and it's next to the little finger, and it's one that I did break. I did break that a couple of decades ago. So there is, the bone in the actual hand, it doesn't feel like the same as the others. It doesn't sit the same as the others, but it's on that finger, yeah. And it's quite proud, it's quite prominent.
Yeah, that's interesting. So the fingers are kind of representatives of the details of life. So Louise Hay would look at that in terms of like an affirmation that would be good. I am peaceful with the details of life. So that it is usually something quite specific with fingers and toes. And if it's on the right, then generally the right side of the body is about the masculine. So if you imagine the right side of your body is male, the left side of your body is female. So that could be something to do with your masculine energy that you have within you, because obviously we all have feminine and masculine within us. So it could be something to do with your masculine energy, or it could be something to do with men in your life. So your father, your partner, your brother, your kids, any male people, your boss, like whoever is significant in your life that is male. So there's just lots of ways of looking at it where you can get clues. The masculine side, like often when something manifests on the right, it can be to do with like masculine traits. So in terms of like everybody at the moment is wanting to kind of step into their power. So stepping into your power is considered to be quite a masculine thing, even though women, obviously we are all stepping into our power regardless of our gender. So that can also be, if it's something to do with a detail of your life, it could be representing a resistance to becoming powerful in whatever way is right for you. That finger, so it's the ring finger, isn't it? Specifically, yeah, on the right, yeah. So that can be representing grief, like some kind of grief. but it can also represent unions. Like even though it's on the right, it can be representative of unions. So the what would you describe that as? So is it like a cyst or like a wart or a blister, or like what do you think that is? Have you ever had it looked at before?
No. No. It just looks like a round lump on the actual joint on the end, towards the end, the last joint towards the fingernail, but it is actually growing on the underneath as well. So it's like on either side, but it's the one on the top that is more prominent.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if it's a ganglion. Have you heard of ganglions?
No.
All right, ganglions are strange. Like I've had these as well, and the it sounds a bit mad, right? It sounds like an old wives' tale. But if you hit it with a book, sometimes it goes away. And I don't know why it's a book. Like I always question this. And I met somebody recently that is a bit of a medicine man. Like he has lots of supplements and different ways, and lots of people in his community get better. And he always says if you have a ganglion, hit it with a book. Because I remember my mum telling me that and thinking, what, that's ridiculous. But then when I have hit them with a book on my own hands, they have gone away. So I really don't know what that's about.
Well,
like
at least not thrashing it with a bunch of nettles, I suppose. That's so whack it with a book.
Yeah, maybe. If it's growing, it definitely wants you to investigate, doesn't it? Because if you think about it, like if you think about your body communicating with you, it can only really communicate with you through symptoms. So something in your subconscious is it's growing in terms of its need to be seen. So sometimes a good way in is to look at like, how is it making you feel? How does it make you feel that you have this on your hands?
I suppose a bit concerned that it's just going to basically grow to a point where it'll affect my hand mobility.
Yeah.
So I won't be able to do what I can do with my fingers right now.
Right, that's interesting. So you've got a worry that you're going to be inhibited somehow in terms of your movement.
Yeah.
Okay, because if you also look very literally at the hands, anything to do with the hands is often connected to a belief system about how you're handling life, which is basically what you just said there. So you're worried that this is going to grow so that it will inhibit, your mobility and the way that you're able to use your hands and what you can use your hands for. So that's the same as how you handle life, how you handle bits and bobs, day-to-day stuff. So there could be something going on for you that's subconsciously suppressed from childhood, where you were worried that you couldn't handle stuff. You were worried that things were overwhelming. It could be just emotions like overwhelm, and overwhelm is really just a kind of amalgamation of lots of emotional stuff that hasn't been processed. So maybe you've not known how to do that, or you haven't been ready to do that kind of over the years, lots of different reasons. Does any of this make sense? Does it resonate with you?
It does, and it'll give me something to ponder on, and just see if I can connect with what you have just said.
Yeah.
But yes, the last bit you said, how I handle life, or I can't handle it, that is definitely over the last, since 2020, basically.
Yeah, and it seems too obvious. It seems kind of silly. I mean, I had so much resistance to looking at things this way for years until it was just, really blimmin' obvious that's what was happening with my own body. Because my own body, I don't have any problems with my body now. I don't have any pain or anything. And I'm in my 50s. I don't have any symptoms really, because I do so much emotional work. And it just makes sense. It just is so true. And, looking at your hand, I've got a problem with my hand. Oh, it must be something to do with how I'm handling life. Just doesn't seem, it just seems too easy. But if you think about all the mind control and everything, we haven't been programmed to think that things are easy. And why wouldn't the body make it really obvious? It just makes sense. So yeah, I would sit in a meditation and actually speak to your hand as if it was another being. So if you tune into the consciousness of your hand as if your hand, was a little person there that could hear you, it will be so pleased that you are talking to it because it's talking to you. So as soon as your subconscious mind, your body realizes, oh, that she's listening, Teresa's listening, then you will just start to receive insights and information. You might even connect to memories. Some people can do that really quickly. It's just a case of like opening a door. You can even do a little kind of visualization and imagine that you're opening a door in your consciousness, to converse with your body, or even your hand specifically. I call it cosmic ping pong. So as soon as you connect with your body or the universe in any way, then, and you send out an intention or a communication, that it has to come back. And it doesn't always come back straight away. Sometimes it takes a bit of practice. But yeah, it's some food for thought there for you, Teresa.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else like to ask anything? Okay. I'm not that great at keeping track of looking at the list of people here, but if you do want to interrupt and if you want to ask a question or anything, then just put your hand up. I love this putting your hand up business. It's great. Yeah, so that's really interesting. That's really interesting about the hand. There's another thing.
Yeah, Jen, I think Zoe's got a question for you.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, hold on. Hi, Zoe. Hi, Zoe. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Zoe, if you press your unmute again, you'll unmute yourself.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that, guys. Hi, my name's Zoe. I've not long joined the group, and I just wanted to not introduce myself as such, but I am intrigued. I've just caught into the chat just now, Jen, and I'm actually a Reiki practitioner, level 1 and 2, and I do shamanic Reiki, but I'm also in trauma therapy through UK NHS. Now, I do all the holistic things you can imagine: meditation, breath work. I've done Kambo, I've sat with ayahuasca, and I still have chronic pain. My bones, I'm aching, and I just can't seem to find the source of this pain as such. Yeah, so I'm on this huge journey, and I don't get down about it. I'm willing to help as many people as I can, but I'm just like, right, you're doing everything, Zoe. Why do you still have this chronic pain as such? And nobody has the magic answer, and I don't expect you to, Jen, but maybe if you could give me some tips towards, I don't know, something I've maybe not heard of, or, as such. Sorry, hi.
Okay, so whereabouts is the pain?
Basically all over. I had a codeine dependency thanks to the NHS from the age of 17 to about 40. So I think that and the Red Bull addiction that I also had, which was all trauma responses. It was just hiding from depression and getting through a retail job and just surviving and meeting targets. And if it wasn't that, it was cocaine at the time. Now, I haven't touched anything for 14 years. I live as holistic as I can, helping other people, and I see other people healing so well, and I'm like, why is it not happening to me? You know, I'm doing like so much, but maybe that's what it is. Maybe I'm giving out too much and not keeping the energy for myself as such. So yeah, I'm just kind of reaching out to people that may have a different point of view or
Oh,
something.
yeah, it's so difficult. Pain is, it's so debilitating, and you just can't feel like yourself, can you, when you're in pain? So I had a chronic back pain, like it was a lower back pain years and years ago, and I accidentally healed it because it wasn't my priority to look at the pain that I was in at the time, the physical pain. It was my priority to look at the emotional pain because I was in a bit of a mess.
Absolutely.
And when I started to tap over the course of about a year and a half, the back pain was subsiding. So I knew that the pain was caused by something emotional. And it just started to subside the more and more focus I did on the emotion that I was experiencing. So do you do any kind of just sitting with the pain, like trying to connect with the pain?
Yeah, I mean, I do body scans. I tell people, you know, if it's back pain, it's your root chakra. If you've got throat, yeah, it's like everything that I'm preaching and I'm practicing. It's just not working for me, but it seems to work for everybody else. So yeah, I try not. I used to avoid the pain, hence the painkillers, the Red Bull, the dramas and what. And now I'm in this beautiful canon. I'm 47, my son's 24, I've got my animals, I'm just really content. Single for 15 years, loving life. And I'm like, it is that kind of, right, well, I should be feeling like amazing right now. And I do, but physically, all my joints, my hips, my knees, my ankles, wrists, it's just, I feel like 85 when I wake up. Yeah.
Okay,
Just
you've just given me a massive clue.
great.
So yeah, so your joints, your hips, your knees, your ankles, your wrists. So this is your, if you look at this as your skeletal system. So one of the major parts of your skeletal system is your connective tissue. So that's the tendons, the ligaments, the discs of your body, like the fascia in your body. So looking at it really metaphorically, the connective tissue is pointing you towards connection. So the clue that I'm getting from like just listening to you talking, it's probably down to something in your trauma history of a lack of connection. So it's going to be probably a lack of connection with parents, but also a lack of connection to yourself. So a lack of you connecting to yourself, but a lack of them connecting to you, and vice versa, if you see what I mean. Does that ring any bells?
That completely makes sense because you know how hard it is being awake. I completely woke up in like 2015 through quite a shock tactic. So I hate to say it, and I'm not digressing the conversation, but it was actually Hillary Clinton and Podesta emails that woke me up years ago. So for all this Epstein stuff to come out now, as I say, I'm in trauma therapy, and I was like, you know, I'm delighted they came out, but I'm gutted that I've had the confirmation. So if you imagine 2015 is not 2026, I was telling people are doing this, people are doing that, the elites, the cabal and everything, and everybody shot me down. So do you know what I done? I became a hermit. Sorry if I get emotional. I became a hermit, and I just shut off from everybody because I thought, do you know what? I'm done being called a conspiracy theorist or you're insane or you're crazy. So I just shut down. So the connectivity completely resonates because I've just shut down from everybody. And the only people that I've connected with are people that are online, so that I'm able to have people that are like in a light tribe, that are like my soul family, and we're all singing from the same song sheet. But I think in real life, in inverted commas, I think I need to actually connect with like people in my city and chat to people, you know. But I just, I don't do humans, and I think that makes total sense, actually.
Jen,
Yeah, I would look at Zoe. I'd look at
just quickly,
emotions along the line.
Jen,
Sorry.
can I just quickly interrupt and just let you
Sorry,
know that
guys.
Links has got something to contribute if you want to bring Links in when you're ready.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, I will do. Yeah. 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 What was I going to say? Connection. Yeah, I would look at Zoe the emotions around shame. So if you think about shame as a kind of push away, like you pushed people away,
Yeah.
and maybe they pushed you away. So that that's happened to a lot of us, hasn't it, kind of over the years of going through all of this. But if you go all the way back, if you follow the feeling and go all the way back to childhood and look at how you were pushed away and how you would have pushed others away, like there's always a reflection. So wherever there was like a disconnection or a dislocation, like a sense of like needing to, you could only be yourself when you were on your own, that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
That's probably like an overlay that you've got over the top of your pain body, if you see what I mean. But then I reckon address that first. So go investigating the connection thing, but then get really specific with different parts of your body. So for example, low back pain is often connected with the kidneys, the ileocecal valve, the adrenal glands, the uterus sometimes for women. And then obviously the knee pain, like I mentioned before, can be adrenals and gallbladder. If it's upper back pain, that's often liver and gallbladder and spleen, kind of angry emotions. And middle back is often the kidneys and the gallbladder. But for the wrists and the elbows, that's often the pancreas, and the pancreas is often a lot to do with kind of losing the sweetness of life, like feeling a lack of joy, or having your joy crushed. So that can be the wrists that you've got going on there. Sometimes the stomach and the spleen, and shoulder pain is often thyroid. So that could be throat chakra stuff, like when you're trying to express all this stuff to people and they're not listening. It like often energy will trap in the thyroid there, and sometimes shoulders are to do with the heart as well. Yeah, so I would address the connection as the big kind of overlay, and then go looking at certain parts of your body as all having kind of slightly different messages. There's probably a theme, but yeah,
Absolutely.
each part of your body will have a consciousness that you can tune into to get messages there. So I hope that helps.
It certainly does, Jen. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time, and thank you for everybody else for listening. It's just synchronicity when you just jump into a chat that's been on, and then they're talking about things, and I'm like, wait, I need to jump in here because and I wouldn't usually do it, so it's all synchronicity. And yes, I've just started a new production job with a Scottish film, so I'm connecting with people. I'm actually leaving the house and going to see friends and stuff. So yeah, I think this is all divine timing. So once again, thank you for your time, Jen, and thank you everybody else. I appreciate
You're welcome, Zoe.
Thank you, hon.
You're
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got the links. Allow to speak. Okay, yeah. Hi.
Hello. Thank you. My
Hi.
name's Danae. Thank you
Hi.
for all of your information today. And when Zoe was speaking and you were speaking, I got incredible hits, and you covered them as far as the past. I started getting incredible hits in the back part of my energy field. And anytime that I've experienced that myself in my own healing and everything, it has everything to do with the past. Usually, past I don't remember necessarily, but that's just me. But the back of the body, past almost every time I start to feel anything in that. And I've noticed lately too that there's an incredible amount of ancestral clearing. I mean, it's really far back, like even stuff that didn't belong to me when how I can explain that a little bit is to go, you know, I feel something like a pain or discomfort in my back or anything like that. And if usually a family member comes into my head, even to the point where one day it was my great-great-grandfather that I didn't even know. I didn't even know who this was, but I was like, hey, okay, if that's great-great-grandpa, because that's what I was getting, let's just go through and sit for a while and breathe through a lot of forgiveness for whatever was in there that possibly got handed to me. I very rarely know what it is, but boy, it sure helps. So I don't know if that can help at all, but Zoe, I could definitely feel it, um, and feel where you're at. Jen, just fantastic work. Thank you for this. This was the first time I've been in your room. I saw a link and pushed on it, and I couldn't be happier about it. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And yeah, that's such a beautiful example of working intuitively. And like you've just made that sound really simple, and but it is. It's just setting an intention and asking for information. Ask your body for information. Ask your symptoms for information, and then just let your mind go blank. And to try not to force it. Try not to be kind of like there, desperate for information. Just allow it to come at the right time. And like what people tell me is quite often when they're not thinking about it, it will just come in to their consciousness. You know, like you could be in the shower, or you might be cooking, or doing something like a menial job, like folding, washing, something like that. And then people get hit with some sort of revelation. And that's when sometimes the body will choose to talk to you when you've initiated the conversation. So yeah, I would always suggest, even if you've never done any of this kind of exploratory work before, you know, your body knows you, and your body loves you and wants to have a conversation with you. So, you know, none of this stuff is kind of unobtainable or this esoteric kind of thing that you can't access. It's all right there. And yeah, sometimes the ancestors will come and help. And even if we don't understand it, the fact that we've set a healing intention sometimes just allows the physical body to just do its thing and to get on with just using that natural intelligence that the body has. We don't have to understand as well. Sometimes we can just ask and it just will be. So thanks for that. Anybody else like to ask a question? Ooh. Here's Litmus. Hello, Litmus.
Hello, Jen. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well. Would you like to ask a question?
I would. I'm very sorry I've missed everything up until right now. So, but from memory, I think you were asking us to bring our sort of issues or conditions to talk about the symptoms and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. Do you have a question about a symptom?
I do, yes. When I listened back to your last show, it was like I knew what you were going to say every time you asked the question of what issue is it? So I wasn't surprised at all when you said about connective tissues, because I've got this issue with my Achilles tendon, and I thought I know she's going to say tendon. I know she's going to say tendon, and you said tendon, so so I'm bringing you my tendon. So it's on my right Achilles tendon, and it's just I've had it checked, and it's a small tear. It's not a massive rupture, and I have had I've had like 10 sessions of, physio kind of healing on it, but it hasn't healed. So what my intuition, Melvin, is telling me is that it's something to do with my father, because it's on my right side of my leg. And and that's the left side of the brain. So that's the masculine. And I know your right leg is your father, and I've had issues with this leg before. And there's an astrological aspect to it, because it's kind of in Pisces area of the body, the 12th house. So I'm looking at all of that, and I'm wondering what your take on it would be.
Okay. Yeah, so this is interesting. So the feet, in a like general way, are representatives of our understanding of ourselves, or our understanding of life, or understanding of others, or understanding.
Okay.
It's about possibly having kind of like a cloudiness, like a lack of clarity. So if, like, when you described it then as a tear, like I always notice the language that people use, like you do, maybe not always in the same way, but like a tear.
you don't make
like
puns about it, yeah.
a tear is kind of like, that's why I use parts work a lot, because people have, when people say, I feel torn, I feel so torn, that's when a part of you, a part of your consciousness wants to go that way, and another part of your consciousness wants to go that way. So I'm wondering, like, as you've described this as a tear, I wonder if there's some kind of aspect of you that is a protector part, that is preventing you from moving forward in the way that you choose. Does any of that resonate?
Yeah.
When I say protector, kind of like, as an example, sometimes if someone wants to move forward, so I'm saying move forward because obviously the feet are all about that as well, moving forward. So sometimes when we get problems with our feet and it kind of slows us down and kind of grinds us to a halt, we're being shown there's something stopping you from moving forward. What was I going to say there? Oh yeah, so a protector part could be, for example, there might be a part of you that's protecting you from feeling something bad. Like, often it can be disappointment. That might not be the case here, but there might be a part of you that stops you from taking action because a child's version of you didn't want to be let down again. Do you see what I mean? So the part of consciousness might be preventing you from having a negative experience, but not realizing that by preventing you from taking action, it's actually causing more disappointment, because protector parts are profoundly out of date, but we still have them. So our consciousness will often be trying to protect us from things that are no longer a threat in the life that we're currently in, because they're stuck at age 5 or age 10 or something like that. So yeah, it's possible that your Achilles issue is trying to flag up. There's a part of you trying to protect you that isn't protecting you anymore. It kind of needs to be renegotiated, or it needs to be busted. It needs to be kind of like investigated. You can get clues from how it generally makes you feel. So like with Zoe before, when I said, oh no, not Zoe, I can't remember who that was, Teresa. I said, how does it make you feel? Yeah, so what are your emotions about that, having that issue, and the fact that you've worked on it in different ways and not got a result?
Good question. So what's coming to me from what you said is to do with my father, especially when you use the word disappointment, because I was always disappointed by my dad. Not because he wasn't unkind or cruel or anything like that, but he struggled to show his emotions and his feelings and open up in that way, which I found disappointing. And he was very much kind of about duty. So I think this is to do with growing up in the war and this kind of thing, and the society at that time and what was expected, and how he was, the sort of environment he grew up in. So as I got older, I've understood it, and I've had a lot of compassion and empathy for him and let go of a lot of my issues with him, because I understand now where they're coming from. But I think, yeah, there is disappointment there, because I really valued, I might get emotional here. Okay.
Oh, no, that's perfect.
Yeah,
You're doing
it
the
is perfect. Exactly. So I will get emotional, but that's okay. Because that's the universe, I've learned, telling me that I'm feeling the truth. So yeah, I really valued our relationship, but I never felt like it was reciprocated in the same way. So that was a kind of letdown for me. I think I put more, I put more weight on feeling that we had something between us that seemed to continually be disproven by the way he acted, not by what he said. And it's really weird, this, because I've got a friend here with me at my cabin, and we've been sitting in the sunshine all afternoon talking about exactly this kind of stuff, which has been fantastic. But yeah, so there's disappointment. And even though I understand where it comes from, and I've kind of let him off the hook, if you see what I mean, on that thing, it's still, the pain is still there, the hurt. So,
Yeah.
And it's interesting what you said about the childhood thing, because when I was a kid, we used to go to the park in the summer, me and my brother, who's 8 years older, and my dad. And my brother and so when Wimbledon was on, we'd all watch Wimbledon, and we'd go up the park and play tennis, right? With the rest of the world who was trying to do the same thing for those 2 weeks. So if you were lucky enough to get a court, basically it was my dad and my brother playing, and I always had to be the ball boy because I was the young one who couldn't hit the ball properly. And sometimes he would let me have a go where he gently hit the ball over the net and I'd try and hit it back and that kind of thing. But I always felt it was like he was humoring me rather than actually enjoying that play with me, And I think it's part of being the youngest and always getting the hand-me-downs, and the cast-offs from everyone else, and the smallest bedroom, and always last in line for everything. I understand it all, but yeah. So when I was this is a typical litmus answer, right? It's very rambly, so I'm not going to apologize. That's how I am. When I was 12, around then, I used to get a lot of problems playing tennis, funnily enough, with my Achilles tendons being weak and kind of giving out on me, and I'd have to stop playing. So right now, for the first time in my life, I'm wondering if that issue then was because of the disappointment of my dad not playing tennis with me and playing with my brother instead. And this is what I'm getting back now later in life. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think that's a boom, definitely, because sometimes it is the body trying to make it so obvious. So the fact that you've connected the tennis memory with it is not an accident. And also the Achilles is like a sort of very vulnerable spot. And I think it could be connected to grounding. I mean, do you put your feet on the earth? Do you practice grounding?
Oh, all the time, yeah, every day, pretty much. But I haven't been doing that so much over winter when I've been hibernating in my flat, which is on the first floor of a house, and I haven't been going to the beach and connecting so much as I normally would. So maybe there's an element of that.
Yeah, I would get back into that, especially as you're probably getting to the bottom of this issue, because once you start to bring awareness to something and you start to get that understanding, then that's when you need to ground, because the energy that you're transmuting kind of ends up becoming this static in your body that just needs to be grounded. And sometimes heals specifically are about connecting to the earth. So if you think about the way that your dad was, he was struggling in his way, but it left you sort of having this unanchored, kind of insecure, ungrounded feeling because you didn't quite believe him. You know, he was playing tennis with
No.
you, but he was distracted, or you know, he was uptight, or whatever it was, struggling with what he was struggling with. So you, because
It was
you're
like the. Sorry, no, go on. I'll come in at the end.
well, because you're obviously you're a sensitive person, like you would have picked up on that, but not fully understood the feelings that you had at the time. Whereas now you're joining the dots and you're understanding that. So you can, I would recommend doing some inner child work on the part of you that was disappointed about the tennis, and use what I want people to know is that the emotion that comes up around any of this, it's like a wormhole. And it really is. Like if you imagine having there's a switch in your head, imagine having it kind of like most of our life we're on the side of the switch trying not to feel. If you imagine flipping the switch and going, right, I'm going to feel this now, flip the switch and then just go into the feeling, go into the disappointment, into that like gutted, you know, maybe he didn't love me the way I loved him, whatever the story is, go into that, let it all be there, and then connect with your heel and just be open to any insights. But I think you're already pretty much there. I think it is probably the tennis memory. It is often very specific like that.
Yeah, I think you're right because I'm in floods of tears here right now.
Oh, yay! That's so good.
And luckily, I only have to walk about 3 yards outside my cabin and I can stand on the grass. So I'm going to do that right now. Thank you so much, Jen.
Yeah. Oh, you're so welcome. And yeah, I think the grounding is a really, really good idea for physical stuff. I mean, if anybody wants, I think it's only a short film. It's like an hour. I think it's called The Earthing Movie on YouTube, and it's this guy. I can't remember his name, but I think he was an engineer, and he heard about grounding and he thought it was bonkers, and he wanted to debunk it, and he went investigating it. And he spoke to all sorts of different people, and the story that sticks in my mind, like tribal people near where he lived in the US, he went to speak to some tribal people, and they were saying that when someone's sick, like a child is sick, they dig a hole and they put the child in the ground, and then they all gather around the child and love them, which I just thought was so amazing. And like they make sure the child has contact with the earth. They make it comfortable there, so skin contact with the earth, and then they just have lots of blankets, and then they stay with the child at night. They let the child just be connected to the earth. All kinds of problems, like, you know, I think the example they used in the film was scarlet fever or something like that. I don't know. And no, I don't think it was that. I think it was something else. But anyway, they got better, and the doctors said they wouldn't. And it's always just, you know, the earth knows what to do. Your body is an electrical system, and your body has an intelligence. All we have to do is just let our body do that thing, and then let the earth do that thing. We just don't do it. We don't put ourselves in the situation where we can let all that magic happen. So yeah, let the magic happen.
That's really cool, Jen. And I've done a lot of ground. I've actually seen that movie you're talking about.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I think the guy ended up making products, right, for like mats you can put in your bed and plug in and stuff for grounding, or maybe that's a different one. I don't know.
I've got a grounding mat. It's really effective.
Yeah, I did think about getting one, but what I'm interested in what you've said there is I've done loads of grounding, but I haven't done it specifically at the moment when I'm just releasing some emotional stuff. So that's the thing I'm going to do right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if it's too cold,
the other thing is,
do it through your hands by touching a tree, or just touching the earth with your hands if you sit on the grass. I don't think it matters. I think wherever your body is touching.
Yeah, thanks. It's a beautiful sunny day here, and we've been outside in shorts with no shoes and and just shorts on, basically me. So yeah, it's fine. I'm gonna go and lie on the grass, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed that you said scarlet fever, because my granddaughter literally has just had that like a few days ago. So,
God.
so you might not know why you said it, but I know why you said it.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Brilliant.
Well, this kind of synchronicity is happening all the time lately. And particularly I find in holistic radio with all my fellow presenters and people on their shows. I'm just seeing so many crazy synchronistic like signals from the universe that's saying, yeah, guys, you're all on the right path. You're all communicating through me, and which is you and everything, and you're all one, and just keep doing what you're doing, you know.
Yeah, like I think it was you that said it. We've become holistic on holistic radio.
Yeah, that's right. You know, I think I was on your show actually, one of the last few shows you did, where I was just sharing that I've noticed, particularly since the sort of dark moon portal across the equinox, that we all seem to have kind of gone up a level, kind of thing. You know, it's very noticeable. So yeah, thank you so much, Jen. I'm really glad I jumped in at the end there to get that beautiful experience with you.
Yeah, bless you. Thanks, Litmus. Anybody else?
Thank you, and I'll see you in a few days.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, just quickly, I've just uploaded the film, The Grounding Movie, into the station group. So that's there for people to watch if they're interested.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, that's good.
And the other thing as well is, Jen, I don't know if you've noticed, but we're 13 minutes past the hour. If you want to continue, please feel free to do so. We've got no other shows coming up this evening. So if you want to carry on, please do. But I do know you've got much other things to be on with as well. So if you have to go, give us a few words of wisdom, and then we can wrap the recording up, and then we can have a natter in the after show chat if you wish.
Okay, yeah, there's one more thing that has just occurred to me that is a common thing that people seem to struggle with, and they have it for years and years, and it's like, what do I have to do to release this thing? So like when people have an athlete's foot infection, you can look at that in a million different ways, and you can release energy, you can tune into emotion, and sometimes it's like, oh my god, it's still there. So what I found about this specifically, with more than one person who's had this for years, and they're like, what is that? It's often to do with stagnation. So anything fungal is connected to stagnation. Anything that sort of reaches infection is going to be, like in any part of the body, is going to be connected to inflammatory emotions, kind of like anger, that sort of thing. So with the athlete's foot infection thing, it is so common, and like none of the creams from the chemist or any of that seems to work for most people that have that as a chronic condition. So what's happening there is you probably do have emotional stuff that you need to work on, but the main thing isn't the emotional stuff, it's actually action. Like sometimes there's an action that we have to take, that if we took the action, then the thing would just go overnight. It sounds weird, but I've seen it happen so many times, and it happened for me as well, because I had a athlete's foot infection for quite a long time, and it did keep changing. The more I treated it and the more things I tried. If you just put half vinegar, half water in a little spray thing, that's amazing for athlete's foot as well. You know, it's so simple. If you just keep spraying it from a spray bottle, that really, really helps to treat the environment, to stop the fungal from spreading. But yeah, that kind of thing, anything fungal, like any kind of thrush in the body as well, candida, that sort of thing, it's often to do with working on the emotional side of the resistance to taking some sort of action, and then taking the action. So if you actually manage to take the action that your body is showing you, you're resisting something really important here. Like, you're resisting something really important. You need to take some action. So if you've got something like that going on, ask yourself, okay, if my body was giving me a kick up the arse and saying, you need to do the thing, do the thing, do the thing, you need to do the thing, stop procrastinating. So do the energy work, the emotional work that you think you need to do to get through the procrastination, and then take the action. It could be that you need to take an action that you don't realize you need to take yet. So often it can be around support, like you're not supporting yourself enough. Like, there could be an action that you need to take which would bring more support into your life from yourself. Yeah, so that's food for thought there as well. So thank you everybody for coming on, and if anybody's interested, I'll do more of this, because it seems to me that with the energies being bonkers at this point, and people are I think the word is physicalizing. They're physicalizing their emotions big time. So the bodies are screaming at us right now. If your symptoms are getting worse at the moment, it's because there's something emotional that you need to look at. So if anybody's interested, I'll do this again next week. Otherwise, I'll be talking about something else probably. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. And thanks, Andy, for supporting us all and giving us a voice and helping us bring synchronicity into each other's lives. It's beautiful. Thank you, everybody. Lots of love.
Thank you so much for listening and watching. If you got inspired, then I would be so grateful for you clicking the like button, subscribing to the channel, commenting underneath, and sharing with someone you think it might help. And if there is something that you are personally working on, that you are finding it hard, then ask under the video. Let's start a conversation that others can also benefit from. What have you tried that's worked? What have you tried that hasn't? Self-healing is the way, and it is mainstreaming. Let's help each other. Lots of love. I look forward to seeing you here again.